Morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome back to our Fireside Chats. I am delighted today to introduce you to Simon Doble. Simon is an authority on the vital role education plays in breaking poverty cycles. Simon is passionate, probably a bit of an understatement actually, about ensuring every child has access to quality education in a safe environment by uniting a global community to give 6 million solar lights by 2030. Simon is the founder and CEO of SolarBuddy, a registered Australian charity created to educate and empower the next generation of children globally towards a more sustainable future and making a positive impact on the lives of children living in energy poverty via its innovative programs through schools, corporates and festivals. Today, SolarBuddy supports children in over 20 countries via its incredible NGO distribution network. Simon is also founder of Boo Boo Bikes, and we will talk a little bit about that later on this morning, a range of natural bamboo bikes handmade in West Africa and assembled in Australia. He's also an author of 12 children's books focused on child safety and positive social messages. A humanitarian at heart, Simon is a trailblazer in creating socially aware businesses and projects. So Simon Doble, a very, very warm welcome to you this morning.
Thank you very much, Anne. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure, absolutely. So let's sort of talk a little bit about you and what you wanted to do when you were little and, when you grew up and why.
I love this question. Without sounding cliched, I think I'm actually living my dream, to be perfectly honest with you. I grew up in a wonderful little village in the West Country of England, and it was very idyllic. But my father worked very hard. He built a very successful business, and I grew up in that environment. I grew up in that entrepreneurial, work hard environment, but also in an environment where we have a responsibility within our communities to do things. And the business that my father built had a strong purpose within the sporting communities and helping people and stuff. So that always surrounded me growing up, and I always felt that was my direction. I was always tinkering in the shed or the garage with a new idea or a new innovation or whatever, or a way of trying to make something a little bit better. And so combining the two of those sort of groundings was always probably the direction I was going to go in. I certainly deviated off that path a few times. There's no doubt about that. But I think ultimately I always wanted to set my own path, do my own thing, but be positive and have a positive outcome in whatever it is I do for other people, not internally. So I guess I'm living my dream.
Yeah, you are. You're lucky. Fantastic. You're very purpose driven, and really true to your purpose and all of that. So well done. What's sort of a really significant moment in your life that has really affected where you are today? Like, how did you end up sort of creating SolarBuddy? How did that all come about?
There's a couple of things there. One, I mentioned there I deviated off the path that I probably thought I was always destined to be on, and that was called marriage and family and children and putting food on the table and the priority of that and that was a wonderful, beautiful period of my life, and I remember it fondly. But ultimately, that marriage broke down, and it led to quite severe trauma for me in a personal sense, and that was a pivotal moment in my life where I had to reassess the fork in the road and go, do I continue in this entrepreneurial path that is about building businesses and making profit and doing things that are primarily focused on my own family, or do I take another direction and still have them in my heart, but also do something bigger and more purposeful and get back to that strong focus? And that was the most pivotal moment in my life, was the breakdown of my marriage and an internal assessment of what I wanted to achieve in the world and how I wanted to represent myself to my children that I was not going to see as much of because of divorce. And that was definitely one of the most pivotal moments of my life.
Yeah, really hard time for you as well, no doubt. And then, SolarBuddy, I think you were in Noosa reading a magazine, and I think it was a Time magazine, and that sort of changed your sort of directory and what you wanted to do as well. Just talk to me a little bit about that moment as well.
Of course. So in this moment where I was, questioning myself in going through some sort of extreme sort of emotional circumstances with my divorce and not seeing my children every day, which ultimately as a parent is your fuel. It's your, it's what keeps you working hard and focused on life by being a good role model for your children. So I was at this fork and I was searching and hurting and in a metaphorical dark place, I guess. And that for me was a quite a powerful experience. And I came across a Time magazine in my parents' house. It was on the coffee table, and I remember it vividly. And I opened it up and started reading, as you do. And there was an article in there that described energy poverty is the world's worst form of poverty. And it just captivated me, literally, because I never heard the term energy poverty before. I was lucky enough to have traveled through Africa and in Southeast Asia and in various places as a young man on my way to Australia from the UK. And I'd obviously seen energy poverty, but never actually comprehended it. So reading this article, it touched me in so many ways, and it touched me the scale of the problem. It touched me on how technology, in my mind, was able to solve the problem. But it also resonated with me deeply, privately, personally, because of the dark place that I was in, and the dark place that millions, billions of people around the world are in every day and every night. And so it was a sort of similar pivotal moment around the same sort of time where I was trying to find my way out of the darkness and people living in darkness. And it was a combination of how I could save myself while hopefully working for other people to bring them out of darkness at the same time. So that was the reading of the Time magazine, and here we are now. So
I love that story actually. It's a really insightful, but also, yeah, as you said, a really pivotal moment in your life in terms of the direction that you're going to take. Um, you know, what are the stats around energy poverty and children that are impacted?
so
Can you give us,
these statistics,
sorry.
yes. There's some very specific stats from the UN and what have you. Ultimately, the extreme poverty of extreme energy poverty of what we work in affects around 850 million people around the world. There's people that don't live in extreme poverty. There's people that live in energy poverty in Australia. There's people that live in energy poverty in Europe, where their fuel bills are, you know, uh, beyond their regular income and different things like that. But what we work in is defined as extreme energy poverty, and there's about 850 million people that still live in extreme poverty today in 2020. And what extreme energy poverty means is no electricity source whatsoever, whether it's a generator or it's a mains grid or anything like that. They're literally burning highly toxic kerosene inside lamps for light. They're burning charcoal or firewood to cook and heat their homes. The most primitive forms of energy you can possibly imagine. And it affects so many people in so many different ways. And that's why we're focused on what we need to do. But energy poverty, or extreme energy poverty, kills more children than AIDS and malaria combined every single year. So there's over 2.4 million children that die just from the air that they breathe inside their homes whilst living. And when you combine these with the economic statistics and the reduced education outcomes because of the toxic fumes whilst they're reading books and all the other elements of extreme energy poverty, we have a huge problem. But ultimately it's solvable. And if we work as a global community together to identify and communicate and learn and innovate, then we can work towards ending it, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that sort of leads into the next question. In terms of energy poverty, I was a bit like you. Until I actually met you, I didn't really have an understanding of energy poverty and, what was actually going on globally in the world, particularly around kids and education. How do you continue to really sort of push out the word around energy poverty to really drive awareness to get, corporations and everybody else behind you?
Lots and lots of hard work. But we, um, I think when I first heard of energy poverty and it captivated me and gave me a strong purpose and got me back on the road of what I was always destined to do. I think I designed an innovation for the United Nations for refugee camps, and it's a solarized solution. And that was wonderful, and it did what it needed to do, and I'm very proud of that. But ultimately, the refugee camps are a microcosm of what energy poverty actually is and how many people it affects. So our focus with SolarBuddy moved from, when I started SolarBuddy in 2015, it moved from the focus of refugees and refugee camps and the UN sort of umbrella to the people outside of refugee camps and the communities and children that are generally forgotten, and that's an issue. So we identified that if we can empower children to study in a safe environment where there's no toxic fumes that are affecting them, where they can study longer, they can then go back to school and get better grades, then that has a transformational effect on a whole community or a whole country or a whole generation. So that's really exciting, and that's the essence of what we do. And because we do that, we can communicate that to our corporate partners. We can communicate that through our school partners. So just by raising awareness around the power of education through education, we sort of educate people around energy poverty in its own effect. And then everyone obviously has this hands-on experience of assembling something and donating something. It's very tangible and impactful and long-lasting. So there's a very strong physical pull in that donation, which we feel has led to some success, obviously, for us. But surrounded by a very passionate team, very focused team, some amazing partners that really believe in what we're trying to achieve and can see the outcomes of what we're doing. Yeah, lots of hard work, really. So.
Yeah, no doubt. And the sort of the global social impact, you've tripled the growth of the business. Just talk us through how you've sort of successfully done that. So what were some of the learnings in there that our community could also learn from?
Sure. I think as with any good structure or good operation or even a good building, I suppose it starts with the foundations. And I think we really sat down as a small team, a very small team, and worked out from experience what was wrong in the humanitarian world, what was disassociated between the corporate environment and the humanitarian environment and the school environment, both from a developed nation point of view or an emerging economy point of view. And we sort of analyzed what was missing and how we can engage with so many people. And because this was a global problem, and as much as extreme energy poverty really only affects people in very impoverished countries, it still environmentally affects people globally. So we knew we had a bridge to build, and we analyzed the whole sort of spectrum of potential and problems, and then pieced together a model that enabled engagement through education, empowerment, awareness, but also direct impact. And I think that foundation of what we've achieved has led to those triple-digit growths. We're quite good at identifying markets that we can really penetrate and scale in. We're very passionate, which I think is worth, hundreds of thousands of dollars of HR every year. And we have an amazing culture. And there's a very famous saying: "Culture will eat strategy for breakfast." And I truly believe that. And we strategize, and we work out what we need to do, but we also have a very, very strong culture where we support each other, we believe in each other, we hold each other up, and we work for the children that we know we have to work hard for, and that resonates through everything that we do, and that's at our core. And so I think those elements, the analysis and the foundations and the modeling of what we needed to achieve, combined with a deep sense of purpose, passion, and culture, is led to what we have now, I guess.
Yeah, fantastic. What about how important, based following on from that, how important is CSR and it being intertwined with leadership and the value of a business? We're sort of seeing this more and more becoming more relevant from a purpose perspective with businesses. So, how important do you actually think it is?
It's absolutely fundamentally important. I cannot put too much enough pressure or stress on the fact of the importance of it. The shifting sands of business in purpose-driven business in for-profit business in social enterprises is a wonderful direction where things are going. The concept that businesses are only in the marketplace to make money and keep shareholders happy and do what they say they would do on a box is changing daily, as far as I'm aware, as far as I see and working. And I think that's a wonderful place, and some wonderful outcomes are going to come from that, in the shifting paradigms of how businesses operate. I think the meeting in the middle between, very strong for-profit organizations and charities are meeting in the middle a little bit more around the social enterprise space and impact investing and all those wonderful things that are really starting to identify that if you're going to work in the humanitarian or charity space, then you shouldn't be underskilled or underpaid or undervalued, because the people you're working for are the people that need your work the most, more so than shareholders and big businesses that, that's my belief anyway, and that's how I feel. I think companies and shareholders and big business are identifying that now and willing to empower the boards and the C-suites to look at how they can intertwine the support in corporate social practices within their industries and businesses to support bigger social impact projects in companies. And I think it's a wonderful place where we're at in 2020 and what the future looks like towards 2030 with the Sustainable Development Goals. So for all the doom and gloom in the world that there currently is, and trust me, there's plenty of that, sadly, there's also some wonderful rays of sunlight that are coming through, where we can actually identify quicker, easier, some of these social problems and work together around Sustainable Development Goal number 17, obviously, which is partnerships for the goals, which ultimately is one of our biggest drivers, bringing people together that are passionate and focused to work with us to achieve our aims.
Yeah, fantastic. One of the things at the moment, we sort of touched a little bit on the importance of really good leadership and everything at the moment. And how are you coping, sort of working remotely and leading the team? What have you learned from that perspective, and how are you managing the team? I mean, just sitting here talking to you today, the passion that you have just comes straight through the platform to me, and it's just so invigorating. But how do you maintain that with your team?
I don't know what the correct saying is, but without using a cliche, there's no I in team, and I think that's the essence of what we have. Every single person that works within SolarBuddy, partners with SolarBuddy, understands what SolarBuddy is all about, has that purpose and passion. And if my role is a leader, if that's what it is, then it's to empower everybody to believe that they can lead themselves and then stand back and behind. I'm not interested in the spotlight at all. I understand it's part of my job and that's what I have to do, but I'm so proud and inspired every day by the SolarBuddy team, the children that we work for, our partners that we work with. So how am I doing that? I guess it's the same thing as what we've always done, is just a little bit more virtually. We focused on we have a very young team in SolarBuddy, so we focused on maintaining engagement, regular but purposeful, not engagement for engagement's sake. It has to be either organizationally driven or or have a social sort of, a bit of fitness, a bit of stretching, a bit of yoga, some fun drinks of an afternoon, and all that sort of stuff, just to keep the morale and the engagement, and the willingness to go that extra yard, just bubbling around the surface, which is really important.
It's kind of really important at the moment, given that we're in a virtual world, to have a little bit of fun and have some time when you're just not talking about COVID-19 and all the stresses and everything that everybody's in, particularly for us Victorians.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit, how did you go about designing the actual SolarBuddy? So the model, so the actual business model, because I know that you did a ton of research in that space. And then how did you go about designing the kit? Just talk me through those two.
Sure. So I touched on earlier, I designed something for the UN a number of years ago after reading that article in Time, and that exposed me, as I mentioned, to communities outside of refugee camps all over the world, and as a young child and a young student, and as a innovator that's progressed my career over the last few years, I sort of take pride in being able to listen and learn and understand and empathize and design ultimately solutions or models based on that interpretation and understanding. So the light is actually from years of just working in communities across sub-Saharan Africa and understanding how the need is for children to operate a light, how they can carry it, how they can recharge it, and marrying that simple design into a kit form so other people could assemble it, but also marrying that design into the model of what SolarBuddy is, and all the other elements of that. So it was a fun project to do, and one of my prouder designs, but ultimately it's specifically designed for children to engage with. It's called a buddy, SolarBuddy, and it's got eyes and arms and little feet and stuff. So most of these children that receive a SolarBuddy have never seen anything like this in their whole lives. So being handed a solar light by their teacher in their classroom in the middle of Tanzania or elsewhere, Madagascar, is they needed to really build a relationship with it very quickly, and so that was one of the elements of it. Being able to use it in multiple sort of places and functions around their homes and study environments, and carrying them to school and charging them on their way to school and charging them on their way home from school. So there's a lot of elements to how it looks and why it operates like it does, but ultimately every single element has a purpose to it. So and I could talk for hours about all those minuscule elements, but we'll save that for another day.
Prototypes did you actually develop before you got to your final one?
Not too many, to be perfectly honest with you. I design in my head, and I sleep and conceive and conceptualize in my head quite clearly. And so I prototype in my head essentially, and then we sketch, and then we make a few prototypes to get the functionality down to a point where it's manufacturable. But if I'm honest, we didn't make too many prototypes. The design came from the heart, and the design came from knowledge, and the design came from experience. So I think those three things enabled us to get it pretty right, pretty quick. But we are very close to launching version 2 of Junior Buddy, and which is really exciting and developed by the team, and specifically, our wonderful designer Johnny Lamb, who's done a tremendous job. And then we have a bigger solution coming out early next year called Student Buddy, which will charge mobile phones and different things like that. But again, it's been very purposely designed for teenage children to use in remote communities. So that's really exciting as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And just talk us through, when you actually, before you started SolarBuddy, you did all this research into the sector. So just talk us through a little bit about what you did in that space.
Sure. So obviously I came from small business on the Sunshine Coast, and I'd had big business experience in the UK, and I studied economics in the UK, et cetera, et cetera. And so I had a sort of varied background in different ways. And then when I designed something completely radical for the UN, I was thrust into the whole UN platform and the agencies, and I worked in Geneva, and you know, it was an amazing experience. But I also saw elements of how bureaucracy within big humanitarian aid agencies can take place, and so I was exposed to lots of different platforms of business and aid and stuff. And ultimately, I sat down and we sat down and we analysed how we can work with school children in Australia that have never heard of energy poverty and probably never would. And how we can engage with them to be empowered, how we can work with corporates and understand their needs, and also what the end user needs, and what our recipients are needing from us, and how they need to feel empowered and connected and supported but loved as well. And so it was an amazing 3 or 4 months of my life where some fundamentally sorry, I lost my way there. Some fundamental ideas came out that just blew all my mind, and I think it can be summarized really easily in the letter writing concept of what SolarBuddy includes, and I think that was quite innovative, and probably still is, where everybody that is involved in SolarBuddy gets to write a personal letter to the child that is going to receive a solar light. And you know, we sort of played around with how to connect and how to inspire and how to empower, and that has been probably a really nice element of what we do, that came out of all that analysis. Was we can't just give lights for light's sake. We can't give money for money's sake. We have to connect. We have to give people the opportunity to share their story and share that story to children, so they are forever inspired. All our letters are vetted, so there's nothing inappropriate or anything that has ever gone through the net. But the smiles and the tears and the empowerment that you see at both ends of that process, from fathers that have wrote 7 letters because they have 7 children, and they want each one of their children to be represented with 7 children in another country, you know, crying their eyes out as they're writing these inspiring letters to children all across the world, that get them translated in their classroom. And as the letters are read and translated, their smiles just literally brighten their whole face, and they feel connected. They feel something. And I think that is what I'm most proud of in the whole modeling of SolarBuddy.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story. Do the kids ever write back to you and the team, Simon? Do you ever get letters back?
Yeah, they do. They do. It's fairly complex. Obviously, these are very remote communities and stuff. But our NGO partners are amazing people that do amazing work, and we love all of them. So every now and then we get some wonderful bags of letters just randomly land in the office, and we sort through them. And they're generally, you know, directed back to school children around the same age. We also get gifts. We've had billums made in Papua New Guinea and sent to us, and big sacks that we forward on to schools. And we've had everything from shell necklaces and that have gone through quarantine, and everything in between. So it's really beautiful, and you know, that connection and that community building and that tangible impact of what we are about. It eliminates all that sort of donor fatigue. It eliminates all that sort of not sureness, I guess. And we just, we do what we say we do on the box and connect people. So.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. You know, you've always got things bubbling away in the background. You've got a couple of things on the boil now. So Solve the 17. So let's have a talk about that and how corporates and event planners can get involved.
Excellent.
Sorry, go on.
I'm really pleased you brought that up. So we're very proud of Solve the 17.
And then we'll talk about Boo Boo Bike.
Okay, excellent.
Uh, so solve the 17, sorry.
Yeah, so Sub to 17 is our newest program, and it's based around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is a bunch of 17 goals aimed at energy poverty, aimed at ending poverty in all its forms by 2030. And they initially started as the Millennium Development Goals, and they've had to be expanded out. And they're a wonderful foundation and set of goals that we as an organization align ourselves to, and many multinationals, organizations around the world are now measured against. We have commitments with the UN Global Impact from corporates of how they actually will work towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And they're varied. There's many of them, but ultimately we saw an opportunity where we could raise more awareness around our work and empower more people to consider ideas, models, products, etc., within the corporate team building environment, that actually educates and creates more awareness about the Sustainable Development Goals as well. And that was the birth of what we call Solve the 17. And we were getting very close to launching it earlier this year as an in-person team building experience, but obviously COVID hit, and so proud of my team. Literally in 3 or 4 weeks, we shifted it to a virtual program, and with very minimal promotion, we've managed to work with some of the largest, well-known household brands around the world in a very short period of time, which is fantastic. And the feedback has been absolutely phenomenal. And what it creates is an opportunity for people that have never been to remote parts of Sub-Sahara, or never been to a remote village in India, or never been to, some lower socioeconomic areas in Australia, and actually understand from a human point of view a particular problem or a particular situation or a particular circumstance that so many people find themselves in, and then we empower them as a team to ideate and consider and have empathy and but actually problem solve for problem's sake, instead of problem solving just for the sake of it, which I've never really understood. The problem solving with a purpose, and I think that's the magic ingredients of Solve the 17.
Yeah, fantastic initiative, and congratulations on the pivot that so many people have had to do during COVID. And Boo Boo Bikes, I love the name Boo Boo Bikes. Talk to us about the Boo Boo Bikes and how you can make a bike out of bamboo.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? They're beautiful bikes. I have one in my hallway here. I should get it, but I won't. They're made in northern Ghana by an amazing initiative called Ghana Bamboo Bikes, headed up by a lady called Bernice, who is one of the most inspirational women I've ever met in my life. They're literally made from raw bamboo, grown wild in northern Ghana. And the initiative started out as a female empowering initiative, employing women from various circumstances, difficult circumstances in and around Ghana, to learn a trade or craft to earn an income. And I met Bernice in Brussels in Belgium in 2013, I think it was 2014, and just fell in love with the bike. They're absolutely beautiful, and they're very strong. And over the years, we've worked out a business model that we're now getting ready to officially launch in Australia later this year. And it's a social enterprise. We're empowering women and ladies in northern Ghana to work more hours and earn more income. And then we're working with disadvantaged and young adults in difficult circumstances here in Australia, to be mentored in the assembly of the bikes, and again tell that story through our website and our marketing of how purchasing a bamboo bike can empower and inspire other people. And they're beautiful. Each one is handmade. Each one is completely independent, individual in looks. and we're very excited about finally getting it to market after a lot of trialing and testing and proving to the ACCC that these bikes are as good as, if not better than any other bike on the market.
Well, maybe I'll get you to send me a picture of one of the bamboo bikes and we can tag it on to the end of today. That'd be awesome. I'd love to see one, actually. I'd love to ride one, actually. I'm just really mindful of our time, and 30 minutes goes really quickly, and I could actually probably sit here and talk to you all day. I just love talking to you, Simon. It's just so enlightening, and there's so much passion in what you do, and what you're doing is incredible. So I do have one. I actually have two final questions for you, actually. I'm really curious to know whether or not the guy on the surfboard in the picture behind you is actually you.
No, not at all. That's my oldest son, Archie. Yeah, that's yeah. I'll tell you that in a minute. And in the next question,
Okay.
sorry.
And the final question for today is name one thing, given COVID and the impact it's had on so many people, that you will just never take for granted again.
I could probably answer that both questions with the same answer, to be honest with you. So over my right shoulder, whatever shoulder it is. Over one shoulder is my eldest son on the surfboard. That's Archie, and over my other shoulder is my youngest son, Will. And above me is my daughter, Luca.
Right.
And sadly, they're not in my life. There's a situation in a lot of breakups of a thing called parental alienation, and it's a very difficult subject for me to discuss. But ultimately, I've been exposed to that for many years, and that drives us forward as an organization and gives us a lot of, certainly my own personal purpose around why we are illuminating so many children's lives, because I don't have the opportunity to physically in person illuminate my own children's lives. So that's the answer to who that is in the picture, and also the answer to what I will never ever take for granted ever again, which is every single second that you spend with your children. And hopefully one day I get to very soon.
I hope that you do. Yeah.
I hope so.
Really, yeah, absolutely. They certainly deserve to have you in their lives. So,
yeah.
Simon Doble, yeah, absolutely. Simon Doble, thank you so much for joining us, and Saxton and Scene Change for Fireside Chats. It's been an absolute delight talking to you today, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me. It's been good fun.
Pleasure.
Thank you.